So along with the benefits of connectivity, of the massive use of digital technology in our world today to solve complex social problems, to share, to grow our economy, there is also increasingly the erosion of rights that generations, centuries of our ancestors have fought for that are degrading. I'm talking about human rights and civil rights and privacy. But let me tell you my story. So this is where I grew up. As you can see, there's no telephone poles, there's no electricity, there's no paved roads. It may seem a free and open place, but this is also where I learned how to conduct myself as a human being, how to resolve conflict, how to act. Pono, which is the Hawaiian word for doing the right thing, which is not a rigid concept. It's open for interpretation, but it means doing the right thing for all of us. This is where I played and had disagreements with my friends and then agreed again and negotiated with each other to be able to resolve some serious fights sometimes. And this is also the place where I became aware of the concept of surveillance in the form of my parents. And if you look at this picture, you might not be able to see borders or boundaries of any kind, and I don't blame you. But as a child, I certainly knew the difference between places where I was allowed to play and to have open discussion and fight with my friends and then make up with them, and to resolve the differences that we had with each other. And then separately understand that there are spaces where good conduct is expected of all of us. This fascination that I've had between places where we can have open dialogue and debate and have what I might call creative conflict, constructive conflict, positive conflict that allows us to grow. This fascination has carried over into my professional work. I teach on the topic, and it's the focus of my work in UN peacekeeping in the United Nations. Most of my recent work has been in conflict environments where it's dangerous, and I'm called upon to advise on the handling of information and the use of technology in highly conflicted political situations. And as a human, I feel the danger around me, sort of just out of my vision, whether it's responding to Ebola or helping to destroy chemical weapons or being in the middle of a civil war. I feel the danger, and also there are demands of me to be able to clearly distinguish between conflict and conversations that must happen in private, because protection is needed by people who are vulnerable, and conversations that really must be public, because they're public problems. They're problems that not one of us can solve individually alone. We can only solve together. So using technologies and applying them in these conflict environments has brought to my attention, of course, both the incredible benefits that can be seen by using new network technologies, and also some of the downsides, some of the risks that are very stark in a conflict environment, and I will explain that. But also, because the way the internet is structured, carry over and into more peaceable societies. I'd like to bring to your attention possibly some things that may be invisible to you. Maybe you are not aware of them. Because to know what you know and what you don't know, that's true knowledge. So first, what are the opportunities? Right? There are massive opportunities presented to us by the use of big data, by using mobile technologies, and using information on maps to be able to allow us to destroy chemical weapons in the middle of an extremely complex environment where everyone is in massive danger of losing their lives. And we can do so in a targeted manner, and we can do it in a safe way for the benefit of everyone. It's some of the most dangerous work in the world to actually safely do. We can also use technology to trigger catalytic social change. We can organize faster. We can share information. We can know who's doing what and where people are, and generate consensus about what we think needs to be changed. These kinds of affordances are difficult at best in the past and could take generations rather than months. And frankly, can have some mixed results, of course. But these are things that weren't possible before. And finally, we can use big data to unpack extremely complex environments where it can seem very opaque from the outside, or even if you're within the conflict, to know who are the powerful actors who are driving this conflict and making it worse, or inflaming sensitivities. And where are they moving? And what are they doing in order to be able to fund their activities? We can begin to unpack some of these complex social problems and political problems by using big data techniques. However, in my direct experience, I've also seen some emerging problems that I would like to bring your attention to and challenge you to think about them. Because I'm just one person. And I think some of these problems go far beyond any individual and can only be solved by us together. There's incredible good that can come from the use of all of these tools, but I'll urge you to think about two things: the use of civic space and public speech, and privacy. What we're seeing now is a mass migration of public speech, the way that we just interact with each other and talk about politics and talk about change. And we're seeing that speech migrate onto the internet. But the way that the internet is constructed right now, that speech is largely contained in corporate environments. And this may not seem of any great consequence to you or to me on a daily basis. But in fact, if speech exists in corporate environments, like Facebook, it also is subject to the rules of those corporations, which do not have human rights as a core concern. And so what does that mean in real life right now? Well, as an example, if I take out my mobile phone, and everybody that has a mobile phone, take it out. Just take it out for a moment. And for a moment, think about the person that you trust most in life, that is your closest confidant. For me, it's my husband. He's my best friend. But think about somebody that you would tell things to that you wouldn't say in public. Maybe not secrets, but things that you don't belong in public, basically. Now, 100 years ago, this kind of interaction exchange would happen in private. But now, if you were to call that person right now, there are many intermediaries. I challenge you to think about, for just a moment, how many people and entities are between you and your closest confidant. There are telecommunications companies, there are network infrastructures, there's international policing alerts, there are any number of intermediaries that are invisible when you're interacting. And so, okay, what does this mean? Well, I live in New York. Phones are great. I can't live without it. It's my daily tool. There's really very little consequence in many places. However, if you're a political journalist, maybe 400 kilometers to the east of here, or a filmmaker who profiles international whistleblowers 6,000 miles west of here, maybe those intermediaries and all those people in between, maybe that's not so good. So I challenge you to think about what it means to have governments using corporate entities essentially as an extension of their powers to control dialogue and to control public speech. Like I said before, these are very stark in conflict environments. But what I have felt is that the way that our tools are set up actually easily allows some of these risks to port into more peaceable places, like where we are now. Because tied directly to our ability to organize in digital spaces is our ability to carve out personal, private space that's just our own, where we can reflect, we can regroup, and no one's watching us. We can feel fully human. And privacy is not a new thought. It's an ancient concept. Even in societies that don't have a word literally for privacy in the Western sense, there is still a concept that does not allow easy and open access to the bedroom, to the bathroom, to relationships between a parent and a child, a doctor and a patient. Privacy is a fundamental human thing. It doesn't require any technological interference. Thousands of years of legal thought have allowed us to create frameworks to protect especially victims. So I challenge those who say privacy is dead. Privacy is not dead for victims, and it's not dead for the vulnerable. And we've invested our collective human wisdom into creating protections for the vulnerable. And we shouldn't give that up easily. That's really the grounding of privacy. So in conflict environments, privacy is one of the first things to go as a civil right. Physical homes are violated, bank accounts are drained, network accounts are hacked, people are profiled in order to target and kill them. But even in peaceful societies, the risk is actually not insignificant that the tools can be used as an extension of the state everywhere, including the United States, of course. So these are the things that I've seen. These challenges, like I've said, are very clear in more conflicted environments, but extend to us. And these, I can't unpack them alone. I ask for help. I ask you to think about them. And so what can you do today, you might ask? Well, you're just individuals, and I am too. But a couple of things that you can do right away is you can use tools that are easily found on the internet to protect your identity. And you can use tools to anonymously browse. And you can also vote with your wallet. You can ask all of the different sites and apps and businesses that are producing incredibly innovative technology, which we desperately need in the social justice sector. You can ask them for a degree more of control, because privacy is a civil right. And our ancestors for centuries have fought for this and demanded it, and we should claim it as well. Privacy is a right that we should claim and own. So if you're creating speech, you should have some control over that. You could ask for more direct awareness, because it's the lack of transparency that really limits our ability to be fully understanding of the risks, not only to ourselves, but also to more vulnerable populations. We can do this together. And I just challenge you, I suppose, to think on these concepts. And as we move forward, claim that right. Claim that right to free speech, and claim that right to privacy. Thank you.